I am a student. I study, or rather, sometimes I appear in one, not the most prestigious university in our vast homeland. And I'm fine, not particularly burdened with anything except simple work, which my boundless laziness does not resist, and once every 6 months a small hassle, the name of which is a session. I live happily, one might say, in a small rented apartment with average speed internet. Your humble servant is not burdened with relationships, so my most faithful friend keeps me company. Yes, laptop, that's right. As I said, I'm fine. So, the necessary background seems to be over. Now we can move directly to the topic. A couple of weeks ago I got sick. Not that it was very serious, just a fever, a nasty cough, and a runny nose, which made me wildly want to kill myself in some evil way. Of course I didn't go to the hospital. A couple of my acquaintances had just graduated from medical school, and knowing them, I formed a very unflattering impression of the entire young generation of doctors. I understood and forgave, let's say. Therefore, I treated myself at home with folk remedies, coffee, cigarettes, mountains of nasal drops, and healthy non-sleep until 4 in the morning. I won't say that it helped a lot, but it was fine for me. Damn, it seems like I repeat this phrase often to the point of obscenity. So it was a night on some date in September or October. It doesn't matter. As usual, I lounged on a chair, warming myself with my laptop, periodically pouring another dose of drops into my nose, and stuck to some toy. My table, by the way, stood opposite the window so that I could enjoy the view of a dirty, narrow street, covered with asphalt that had seen better days, and the crown of a chestnut tree, brazenly blocking most of this beloved beauty from me. So, looking up from the screen, I accidentally glanced out the window and shuddered. The glass reflected someone's disgusting, fat mug, covered with a week's worth of stubble, with bags under his eyes and a sarcastic grin. Presumably mine. Yeah, you can't call me handsome, but that's okay. I continued my fascinating activity, periodically playfully winking at the reflection, when I heard a sound that should not have been in my supposedly empty apartment. In the next room, someone was playing either the violin or the cello, in general, on some kind of bowed, creaky instrument. The first thought was, why the hell did the TV turn on? The next one is, I don't have a TV, followed by, I'll stop drinking. And the last one is too obscene to be voiced in polite society. It smelled like something nasty. I don't know much about medicine or anything like that, but it seemed to me that the smell of rotten meat in this bouquet was quite distinct even through a stuffy nose. It seems I was stuck then. I sat, listened to the sounds of music, inhaled the aroma of rotten meat, and sweated profusely. The fleeting desire to go and see what was making noise there in the middle of the night was mercilessly thrown into the trash. Also, I've been reading too much Stephen King. Let him play, I won't be the first to approach him. Gentlemen, do not be deceived by my cheerful tone. I'm writing this in daylight in a crowded internet cafe, and at the time I was scared as hell. So scary that just a little more and I would have fainted with my laptop in my arms. I sat there for about half an hour, and then the music stopped, but I heard some kind of creaking, similar to the creaking of unlubricated gears. Or perhaps stiff joints. The creaking was followed by a tuneless wheeze or grunt that sent a company of chills marching down my spine. That's all. Peace and quiet, as if nothing had happened. At dawn, when the lack of clean handkerchiefs or at least napkins became unbearable, I still found the strength to lift my ass from the chair and carefully look into the next room. No one. If it weren't for the persistent smell of carrion, I would have thought that I was dreaming everything. Having slightly recovered from the shock and, most importantly, having finally poured another portion of drops into my nose, I began to do what anyone would do if they found themselves in such a situation. Yes, I started Googling. Having climbed a bunch of sites with horror stories, portals, and forums about black magic and otherworldly forces, I was completely disillusioned with the mighty power of the internet. From the horror story, it turned out that the spirit of a dead great-grandmother who played the cello, or a dead person from a nearby cemetery, visited me. But my great-grandmother was completely deaf, like all family members, and the nearest cemetery was half a city away from my humble abode. Frustrated, I took the laptop and walked out of the apartment. The smell, is punchy. The next night, everything happened again. Yes, I returned to my apartment that stank of dead meat. What to do? The autumn weather was not conducive to night walks, so I gathered my courage, opened the door, walked through the rooms, turning on the lights everywhere, prudently stocked up on tissues and drops, and took up my fighting position with the laptop proudly placed on my knees. And again, at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard music that began as if a note was interrupted in the middle. Not a sound of footsteps, not a breeze, not a rustle, only an increased smell, demotivating to get rid of the runny nose. The melody vibrated unobtrusively in the air, and I tried to distract myself by browsing sites of dubious content. You'll get distracted here. The smell is enough to hang an axe. The music stopped as suddenly as it had begun, ending on a high note. After a couple of moments of silence, just like yesterday, I heard a creak followed by a groan. Just in time. Otherwise, my nerves seemed to begin to fail, and I was ready to rush towards the unknown. Realizing that I wouldn't survive another night like this, I turned on the agent and went to get myself a room in the dorm. A few hours of arguing with the administration, a box of chocolates and a bottle of cognac solved all my problem, and I, having collected my simple trash, moved. Of course, it was not as cozy here as in my apartment, but still the presence of people was encouraging. And the damned runny nose did not want to stop. The first night passed calmly, and I was ready to attribute everything to the games of my sick imagination when my friend, living on another floor of the dorm, complained that some cretin was playing the cello in the middle of the night, preventing adequate people from sleeping. I mechanically assented and stopped short, and then he carefully asked if there was a strange smell on their floor. The friend nodded understandingly and said that either the girls, instead of food, had cooked something that should not exist in this world, or a rat had died somewhere, and now everything smelled of rotten meat. Having deliberately lamented with him, I hastened to send him away and sat until the evening, staring at one point. I don't remember what I was thinking about then or whether I was thinking about anything at all, but I felt bad. It's very bad to realize that what's happening is something more than a bad dream, and at the same time, it's somehow vilely pleasant that now it's not just my problem. True, very soon I regretted it. A couple of days later, the cello was heard on another floor, then on the next. The smell followed her as an eternal companion, and the search for dead animals, as you might guess, led nowhere. A week later, one of the teachers at the institute casually noticed that some idiot had decided to organize a midnight concert in his entrance. I sat in the back row and felt myself turning pale, like a bleach stain. Soon something completely strange began to happen. People who heard the music and smelled it began to change. In the corridors of the dormitory, the usual noise could not be heard. People began to look more like shadows than like lazy students. Everyone was in a hurry to finish their business and lock themselves in their rooms. They seemed to be rotting from the inside. What's strange is that I didn't feel any changes in my health. Even a runny nose became my faithful friend. I didn't mind. Anything was better than inhaling this miasma of death and decay. Meanwhile, the infection spread. Even the local news put together a small story about a hooligan disturbing the peace of the night and slipping dead animals into the ventilation. Only I knew that this was not a hooligan. Now I'm sitting in the above-mentioned internet cafe, writing this and thinking. I was even able to draw some conclusions, which, however, I would prefer to keep to myself. I'll just say that most likely it's the smell. He does something, changes something in a person, and turns him into an empty doll. It seems that the music is just a harbinger. Or maybe they are having fun like that. They sound so pathetic and touching that I couldn't help but write it. I actually don't know if it's they, or he, or it, or what the hell. I also don't know why it all started with a concert in the apartment of your humble servant. But if you think about it, the end of the world has to start somewhere. I just hope that my runny nose will last longer.